This is how our minds are conditioned to work, okay? I'll walk through the loop and you'll see why this is the truth. So we were going through our typical day and we have things that trigger. We'll call these trigger events, things that trigger us. It could be, walk into the office and your boss hits you up with, hey, where's that proposal? Or did you get my email this morning? And you're like, well, I haven't checked my email. That triggers something. It triggers either a mental process or an emotional reaction. Now, it's important for me to establish that thoughts and emotions are two sides of the same coin. A thought is an emotion is a thought that's stored in the body, right? It's a meaning that was stored, and it could have been stored a long time ago. And so a thought can trigger that. But you can also have energy or some other stimulus, like someone cutting you off on the road. It triggers the emotional response of fear, anxiety, maybe anger and rage, which then unleashes the thought pattern associated with that feeling. Does that make sense? So it can go both ways, right? It's like a spinning, symbol that it doesn't matter which way it goes. Whatever, the thought can trigger the emotion can trigger the thought, and the distance between them is almost minuscule. Okay, but through training, we can open up a gap between them and begin to work with it. Okay, so that's part of the breath. We'll come back to that. So we have a trigger event. The trigger event immediately goes through a filter, right? So the trigger event, we get cut off on the road. All information coming into our brain goes through what part of our brain? Who knows? The amygdala? Yeah. So it goes to the amygdala. The amygdala is, was part of our mammalian brain that is designed to protect us. Right? So the amygdala, consider this, it was, our brain, the mammalian brain developed a couple 100,000 years ago. And one of the biggest things we had to do back then was to avoid threats like tigers and, other people throwing spears at us, or find food or a mate, basically. Something that's, shiny object. So information would come in, the amygdala would process it, would filter it. Is it good or is it bad? Now, most of the time it was probably good. And so the amygdala would be like, okay, no problem. But when it was bad, it would all of a sudden immediately activate the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight. Okay? And then the fight or flight gets, your body gets all tense, and the judger in you, which is your neocortex, is going to put words to it. This all happens in a nanosecond, right? And the words are bad, scary, oh fuck, right? Here we go again. I'm in trouble, whatever. So that's a negative internal dialogue loop that starts. That I just established that a thought will trigger the emotion. So that negative internal dialogue immediately triggers the emotion, the corresponding emotions. So the judger, bad, I'm in trouble, right? The car just cut me off. Mother effer, I'm going to run him over, right? Because that's the way we're wired to react. That stimulates a reaction. In between here, I get the thought and the emotion, then I get the reaction. The reaction is, I'm going to swerve and I'm going to run that guy down. And that makes me feel good. And it reinforces this behavior. Next time the trigger comes along, this behavior is stronger. This sound familiar to anybody? Now, it doesn't have to be a road rage incident, because that's pretty extreme, but I got to admit, about a year and a half ago, this exact thing happened on the highway in San Diego, and this woman was cut off by a motorcyclist, filtered bad. She judged him as evil. Her reaction was to chase him down with her car. She hit him, killed him. She was a nurse on her way to the job, on the way to the hospital.
Something to do that night.
Yeah. Where do you think she is now? She's not at home with her kids. She's in jail. This is the fear negative loop that our brains are wired for. So Unbeatable Mind says, you know what? this is not good. We can't go here, right? We can't continue this. These might be subtle things, right? They might be like things that are, just like the way we react to certain people, the way we react to the idea of discipline, right? Any type of fear that we have that was programmed into us, or negativity. It gets hardwired and rutted in because of this loop. Because every time we reinforce it, right, it gets stronger.